Good morning, everyone. We'll get started in just a minute or two. And as I usually do, I've been putting a document in the chat so you can check on that. And it has the link. Oops. It has the link that has the document with the chant that we're going to be doing in a few moments, and also some resources for the subject for today. And for those who haven't been joining in, for more than a month now, I've been giving talks on the subject of freedom from this early Buddhist context. And tonight, or today rather, we'll talk about freedom from distraction, so more earthy kind of freedom. So there's a couple nice articles there. If you want to do some more study at home, you can open those documents up so you have them later, or copy that link down. And I see that Jessica's here now to help with technology. So maybe Jessica, periodically you could repost that link. That would be great. Let me put it one more time there in case you didn't get it. And also it's nice in these opening moments to look around at the community and cultivate a feeling of being here together. And as some of you know, we have some wonderful program hosts. Like today, Eric has opened up the building. So those of you who live in or near Minneapolis can come by and sit together in person. And maybe someday I'll actually be in that room with you all. But in any case, the Zoom program isn't going to go away. It's just a question of whether I'm in the office here without a mask, or when I can be in the meditation hall without a mask, then I'll broadcast the Zoom meeting from there. But in any case, you don't have to wait. You're all welcome to come to the center to sit in community, do the small groups in community if you want. And I see that Nancy Bowler, along with Shannon Gibney, they've been volunteering to organize small group meetings. Just a real strong encouragement to try that out. It's kind of surprising, people who really check it out and then stick with these small groups, how much they tell me and tell Shelley they gain from these ongoing short 15-minute interactions with 3 or 4 other community members, where people are just sharing, what is it like to have a mind? What is it like to be a human being interested in freedom, and interested how the heart gets all gummed up and weighed down by habits that can be seen for what they are and released. So now that it looks like most folks are here, why don't we go ahead and do our opening chant, the suffusion with the divine abidings, or what we sometimes call the 4 quarters chant. So sitting comfortably, I'll ring the bell 3 times to begin. Now let us make the 4 boundless qualities shine forth. I will abide, pervading 1 quarter, with a mind imbued with loving kindness. Likewise the 2nd, likewise the 3rd, likewise the 4th, so above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself, I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world, with a mind imbued with loving kindness, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. I will abide, pervading 1/4, with a mind imbued with compassion. Likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth, so above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself, I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world, with a mind imbued with compassion, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. I will abide, pervading 1/4, with a mind imbued with gladness. Likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth, so above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself, I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world, with a mind imbued with gladness, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. I will abide, pervading 1/4, with a mind imbued with equanimity. Likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth, so above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself, I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world, with a mind imbued with equanimity, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. And if you haven't yet, adjust the posture so that posture is relatively relaxed, relatively still, relatively upright. Feeling at home in the body. And we're allowing the body to find its natural ease as best it can. Allowing the heart and mind to find its natural ease as best it can. And for many of us, it can be useful to use aspects of the present moment to support this gathering, this collecting the energies of the heart and mind here and now in the present moment. So, for example, the obvious one is to simply be aware of that rhythm of breathing in and what that feels like in the body, breathing out and what that feels like in the body. Because, of course, that rhythm of breathing in and breathing out happens in the present moment. So if there's this simple recognition, the simple knowing of breathing in. Okay, so this is here and now. And then to begin to appreciate that grounded, stable, pleasant quality of being present here and now. There's something right and pleasant about non-distraction. And we can use the general experience of the body sitting, or more specifically, the sensations of breathing in and out, as a support to notice the present moment and to notice that subtle pleasantness of being present. There is a very real pleasure in non-distractedness, in the same way that there's at least a subtle, if not an obvious, stress when the mind is distracted or lost in thought. And of course, one of the essential learnings in our Dharma practice is that the more calm, the more continuity of present moment awareness and the tranquility that comes with that, the easier it is to notice what gets in the way of bodily calm, mental calm. So this contrast, when we're relatively calm, relatively settled, relatively present, then it's much easier to learn these tendencies of the mind to become distracted, in a sense, to take the bait and then get lost in mental proliferation, a spinning of emotion and thought, feeding back on each other, where thoughts create more emotion and emotions stimulate more thinking, and thinking stimulates more of that feeling tone and emotional feeling tone, and that emotional feeling tone stimulates more thinking. And this is what we mean by papancha, or mental proliferation, distractedness. And the truth is probably, at least in moments, we realize this is most of our waking lives, lost in thought. The drama of planning, the dramas of worrying about this and that, of imagining this and that, speculating, analyzing, problem solving, comparing, wondering. And we're not thinking that thinking is bad. It's the recognition that thinking without awareness, without that recognition, no, it's just thoughts. The mind is planning this out and it's like this now. And that mental proliferation is that recognition how one thought tends to set in motion the next thought, and then the next, and on, until the mind literally exhausts itself. So then the mind tends to look for another topic to obsess around, because it wore one topic out, and then it finds another. And it could be the complete opposite, where we're judging ourselves for being lost in thought. And then that becomes the next obsession. Why can't I get my practice together? Why do I get so lost in thought? I bet this person doesn't get lost in thought. Maybe I'm not built to be doing Buddhist meditation practice. And then we might catch that or get exhausted with that line of thought. Oh, I'm going to give up. And then we think about that for a while. Or I'm going to go on a big, long Buddhist retreat. and I'm going to really show my mind who's boss. And we'll obsess about that for a while. But we have this other option that we want to train the mind to really appreciate the inner, subtle, but very real pleasure. And we could generally call it the experience of non-distraction, or the continuity of present moment awareness. In Pali language, we call it samadhi, that unification, that coming together, the heart, mind, body, here and now in the present moment. And there's a emotional and spiritual healing that happens when the mind has the stability of present moment awareness. And knowing that feeling, that pleasant feeling, really supports the deepening and the greater continuity. So don't be shy about using the experience of the body sitting, or if you like a more specific anchor, using the ordinary, unforced sensations of breathing in and breathing out, just connecting and sustaining that natural interest in the whole body sitting, or specifically the movement of the breath in and out. And when other strong phenomena, experiences arise, well, then they'll likely come into the forefront of attention, and the wisdom and awareness will simply know, okay, now this is being known. So it's not our meditation anchor for a while, but it's what we might call a distraction, like a little mental, emotional storm has blown in, a new weather system. And now it's like this, it feels like this. This is the present moment experience being known. So that's not distraction. That's just knowing the predominant experience in the moment, that in a sense has trumped the meditation object of the breath or the whole body. But the continuity can remain even when these other phenomena come front and center. In a sense, they're saying, look at me. And so wisdom and awareness acknowledges, okay, this is being known. It feels like this. It's just this experience being felt, being known. Can this be okay? And whether the answer, which you don't have to give, is yes or no, it's okay. So if it's not okay, well, what's that like? Can that be okay? The mind rejecting something. It's just the next thing arising in the space of awareness, in the space of the present moment. So let's continue now in silence for about 20 minutes. And remember, we can't help but learn when the mind is relatively distracted. Then notice the stressfulness of how the mind is caught by the content, needing to finish the planning, needing to problem solve, needing to compare. In a way, we can feel that the mind is in the grip of the story, in the grip of the content. Oh, this is stressful like this. And when the mind is relatively free from distraction, notice the lightness of that and the space, the freedom of that. And we'll keep sitting for another 7 minutes or so. And for these last 5 minutes, you could explore keeping the present moment in mind, but without a meditation anchor, without relying on the breath or the sensations of the body sitting or hearing or whatever you might be using. And in a sense, we start with the idea of being present here and now, the way it is here and now. And in a way, that idea of being present can be a kind of supportive anchor. And the reality of the present moment, of course, is quite diverse, different objects coming and going, sounds and sights and thoughts and emotion and sensation. And we don't need to fixate on any particular movement in the present moment, but just knowing that there's this activity here and now in the present moment. So try that for a few minutes at the end of our set now. The sense that everything belongs just as it is, We don't need a different moment. There is always a way to be present, which is as simple as understanding it's like this now, feels like this now. And again, remembering there is a pleasure, subtle, but there's a pleasure in being present. So seeing if you can sense that. A willingness to be relaxed and exposed to what's coming and going, what's being felt, wide open, sensitive, non-judging. Perhaps this is the way to go through life all day long. Wide open, sensitive, not judging, not feeling the need to get tight about what's moving in the moment. Just do what needs to be done, say what needs to be said, but perhaps no need to get tight. And of course, if the heart gets tight, no need to get tight about getting tight. Take a little time, stretch your body as you need to, so you'll be comfortable. I want to start by thanking Judith Regier for speaking last week. I hope many of you were here. Judith is a longtime friend and a wonderful Dharma teacher in our area, was the guiding teacher of Clouds and Water for many years, a local Zen center, and semi-retired, still teaches there as a senior Dharma teacher, but doing her own practice. And you probably know all of our Sunday morning programs and many of our other programs we put up on our YouTube channel. So if you missed last Sunday and you want to hear Judith, you can go there and hear it. And Shelley Graff and I were leading our annual President's Day weekend retreat last weekend, so I wasn't here. And then this coming weekend, next Sunday, I'll be teaching in Madison, Wisconsin. So fortunately for all of you, Wynn Fricke, the co-founder of Common Ground and my beloved partner, will be speaking. And yeah, Wynn's Dharma teaching is very powerful. So if you're around next Sunday, you may want to join in, same time, of course. And as I mentioned at the beginning, in case you weren't here, I've been giving a I've been giving talks on freedom for quite a while now. And today I thought we would discuss a more earthy version of Buddhist freedom, or what the freedom that the Buddhist teachings point to. And it's really a freedom that leads to so much more freedom. And it's, in a way, we should be teaching this kind of freedom from maybe age 3 or 4 in just a gentle, natural way. And it's really the freedom of non-distraction. Okay, I'm getting a few notes in the chat. Oh, it looks like the host has disabled some people's video. That's very strange because I haven't done anything. Jessica, I don't know if you're seeing this, but maybe you could, as co-host, the people that said their videos were disabled, maybe you could do something to enable those videos. Otherwise, I think I'll continue as long as you can have audio. Good, yeah. So I mentioned just to be interested in this freedom of non-distraction and to explore it. And we can do this all day long. We can do it right now, as new chats are getting put into the chat, how like the next shiny object. And it's not like we have to have an aversive relationship to the next shiny object, whatever that might be. It might be an emotion that's showing up in our heart. It may be the next chat. You can see I'm a little distracted. Okay. But it really is fundamental to being a human being, because we don't really have any capacity to be competent in our relationships and feeding ourselves. I mean, even in the most basic things, if our mind is constantly pulled here and there. And it's not that we're not connected, but it's just flitting about. One of the things I've often appreciated about early Buddhism is just the emphasis they place on being connected to reality. And in a way, it is our devotional object. I mean, you can see behind me, I have a statue of the Buddha, and I have a picture of Dipa Ma, and we have different objects on our altars. But really, what our devotional object is, it's reality. And reality isn't a noun, it's a process, a changing process here and now, always, right? And so it's not so easy for artists to depict this devotional aspect of early Buddhism. But we should understand, as practitioners, we should understand, if we're going to get down on our knees and put our head on the floor because we're moved with that devotional energy, it should be because we're devoted to the present moment. We realize, in a way, it's all we have. And to be disconnected from the present moment comes with a real risk, right? We miss our life, quite literally, if we're not connected to the present moment. The nuns and monks in the monasteries, Theravada monasteries, they chant homage to Dhamma, to Dharma, the way it is, to the present moment, to reality. Now let us chant in praise to the Dhamma. This is how the chant goes. It's usually done every morning at a lot of the Theravada monasteries, some lay centers as well. The Dhamma, right, the teachings that point to the way it is, are well expounded by the Buddha, apparent here and now, timeless, encouraging investigation, which for me means inherently interesting, inherently and naturally interesting. The present moment reality draws us in. And the next one is leading inwards or leading onwards toward freedom, to be experienced for oneself, realizable by the wise. I chant my praise to this teaching. I bow my head to this teaching, to this pointing out of the present moment. And I encourage, especially those of you who are willing to be a little creative, I encourage you this week, because I'll probably pick this topic back up, not next week, because Wynn will be teaching, but in 2 weeks of non-distraction. I encourage you to find your own ways to express some love and devotion to the present moment, to non-distraction, to being connected to the present moment. And to really start mapping out in your own subjective experience that having been lost in thought and now returning, like being a good Catholic, we learned the prodigal son who went off and was naughty for a while, and then returned home, right? And there's a little of that, where the mind is taken some bait and now is obsessively worrying or planning or imagining or fantasizing, whatever it might be, problem solving. But eventually, especially the more we practice, the mind returns. Oh, thinking is like this. Having been lost in thought, the reverberation is like this. And there really is a sense of homecoming. And we want to cultivate that sense of being present as our real home, more than, how they say, the sense of smell is like deep into the brainstem. So in terms of memory, the smell of our grandmother's home, for example, is sort of really deeply set in our hearts. But in a way, the deepest sense of familiarity and home is the present moment. But we have to activate it by being interested. Is that so? We have to check it out. Does it provide, is it a kind of refuge? Is it a kind of spiritual home? Is it worthy of cultivation, this connecting, sustaining with present moment reality? This is from Ajahn Sumedho, a Western Buddhist monk in the early Buddhist tradition, Theravada tradition, and an important teacher of mine. He writes, and this is from his book, The Mind and the Way. Meditation is a way of opening to Dhamma. You're opening to the truth. So not a conceptual truth, but just the more non-conceptual, direct, immediate opening to the reality. And you could say to the reality of these 6 senses being known. The 5 physical senses of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and touching. And then the activity of the mind is considered in Buddhist thought to be the 6th sense, the 6th sense gate, how we know the world. Because we do know thought, just like we know sensation and sound and sight and smell and taste. So we're opening to the truth that this is being known. It's like this. This experience is being known. In a way, it's only that. It's only ever that. Isn't that right? There's the activity in the present moment being known. And this is anything other than this is being known is what we call distraction. So when you think about that, when we reflect on that right now, like even hearing the talk, there's a difference between realizing that hearing Mark, comprehending to some degree what Mark is saying, seeing the computer screen or whatever. Oh, this is being known. No, you don't need those words to go through your mind. This is being known. But there's that sense that this is being known in the present moment. And so when we don't have that reflective sense that this is being known, then chances are the mind is distracted. So again, meditation is a way of opening to Dhamma. You're opening to the truth. So when we chant about Dharma or Dhamma, we say that it is apparent here and now, timeless, encouraging investigation, leading to liberation, to be experienced for oneself, realizable by the wise. These are words that point to the here and now. When we're opening to the truth, we're not looking for anything in particular, like focusing on one object and saying, is this the truth? Opening to truth is opening the mind rather than focusing on one thing. So when we take refuge in Buddha and Dhamma, that reminds us to be in this state of alert attention. We're not trying to concentrate on this, get rid of that. We're not getting caught in the habits of indulgence and suppression. When we do open, we learn how to open ourselves here and now. Then we begin to experience peacefulness. That's what I was mentioning in the guided sit. Notice, what does it feel like when there's some continuity of present moment awareness? It's only when we notice will we feel motivated to cultivate present moment awareness. Because we're not looking for anything particular to attach to. We're not running about anymore. We're stopping the frantic running. So opening to Dhamma is the way to peacefulness, which we have to realize for ourselves. We have to realize that truth for ourselves. It's not a matter of waiting around for somebody else to realize the truth for us or to tell us what it is. Taking refuge is not looking for something somewhere, but opening to the way it is here and now. Taking refuge is looking at how things really are, rather than the way we might romantically conceive them to be. And this is the thing, is we've gotten into this habit of preferring our thoughts about reality to reality. In a way, it's the root of our neurotic tendencies, is we prefer our thought. We seem more comfortable and more secure with our thoughts about things than we do with actually being open to the way it is right now. And that can be changed. We have to kind of cultivate that relationship by going back to it. And it's really a matter of growing up spiritually, or maturing spiritually, because when we're attached to our thoughts or other people's thoughts, there's a kind of naive hunger that some conception, some story, some way of telling myself what's happening is going to be fundamentally more satisfactory, useful, functional than just being wide open and present. And it's interesting, we think, I need a defined narrative of my life before I can live my life. It's like one of the stories in the Buddhist tradition from the time of the Buddha, he used it. It's like the house is burning down and we refuse to leave the house, even though it's burning down, unless people tell us who started it, what kind of fuel did they use to start it, and where in the house did they start that fire? Because we want the story as opposed to realizing, it's getting hot and smoky in here. I wonder how I get out. Just dealing with what's here and now in the present moment. And in little ways, especially in safer, more simple places in your life, like when you're meditating or when you're walking around the block, maybe walking your dog or something like that, you can just experiment. Like, how about I just train the heart to be present without any need or dependence on a story? Okay, now I'm walking the dog and I'm going to be present. And then what we're doing actually is we're cultivating the thought of walking the dog and being present, as opposed to simply being open to the physicality of lifting the foot and placing it and seeing the dog and hearing the sounds and seeing the sights. Just the raw activity through the six senses and the recognition that these experiences are being known. It's like this. Like, let's just check this out right now. When we're willing, now as you hear my voice, when we're willing to just experiment with being present without needing any words to tell us what being present is, but just the more of the raw presence to hearing, thinking, seeing, just the predominant elements here in this moment. You see that the mind doesn't need to be dependent on any kind of story. Sorry about the video problems people are having, not sure what's going on. Let me just text somebody. Make sure you're not using the internet. We're having problems. Great. And the trouble is that if we don't get interested in the present moment and start cultivating some present moment awareness, we will sort of be in this loop, what we call samsara, forever and ever and ever. And the Buddha talks about it in graphic terms, like it will never end. And partly, I think, to scare us, to motivate us to really check out the practice of being present. But we do get a little sense of that, how we're drawn back. One of the images that the Buddha uses is how a dung beetle crawls back to dung, and you might see the dung beetle there on the side of the road eating the horse dung that the horse dropped. And you might have compassion. Oh, poor beast, an insect that has to feed on dung, that doesn't look good. Let me move you away from the dung heap. And of course, the beetle will crawl right back to the poop because that's what the dung beetle wants. And this is the image the Buddha uses for this tendency of our own mind. Because on the surface, thinking about things, getting lost in thought, cultivating drama, and then being lost in drama seems juicy on the surface. There really is a gratification to, the different spinning, juicy spinnings that we're in. Maybe you're in one right now. Maybe I'll ring the bell to bring it back. Like, how can we motivate ourselves? And the way the Buddhist suggests that we motivate ourselves is we pay attention to the stressfulness of when our mind is in a drama and caught in the drama in a way that we forget that we're in the drama. We're so in the circling of the drama that there's no space in the mind that realizes, I'm really caught up in this content. That's being lost in thought. So what we need to do initially is have some space of present moment awareness, maybe just in moments, sporadic moments, where it's like a drowning person comes above the water and then they are able to, oh, I'm drowning. They have a moment where they're not so struggling in the drowning to realize I'm in a difficult situation. And that's what we do, like when our mindfulness comes back online and we realize that we're drowning, that we're caught, that there's something juicy the mind wants to go back to. A little bit like when you get woken up and you're having a juicy dream. There can be a very strong desire, like, oh, I want to go back to that dream. Even when things are scary, even when the dream is scary, we just want to keep going back and back and back to that dream, to the content, because the heart is caught. And there's a certain, even though it's stressful, there's a certain sense that unless I see this content through, I'm going to be sort of exposed or vulnerable. And it's just sort of a setup, like vulnerable to what? Vulnerable to not knowing where this thought stream goes. Well, can't that be okay? It's like we can ask ourselves all kinds of questions like, what happens when I die? Or what's happening right now in Ukraine? And we can know, I don't know what happens when I die, and I don't know what's happening right now in Ukraine. Can I be okay not knowing? Like, that's the alternative to thinking I need to know and then endlessly speculating, can be just, I can be with that feeling of not knowing. Isn't that possible? To know that I don't know, that the present moment's like this, conditions are like this now. Well, maybe that's okay to be in the moment. And we're kind of creating this place for us with our own heart, our own body, our own mind, to be like a naturalist. That, we need the contrast. We need enough calm, just like a naturalist studying some ecosystem. They set themselves up. They try not to affect what's going on in that ecosystem. They got their little perch and they're just observing and listening and sensing what they can be aware of there, right? And it's that contrast that really allows the mind to see what it's not seeing about distractedness. When we're really distracted, when we're really caught, it's hard to kind of get a sense of what's going on. So this emphasis on calm and tranquility and stability of present moment awareness, it can be misunderstood as like, I just need to dominate this mess. I'm going to get my mental, spiritual act together, and I'm going to suppress distraction, crush mind with mind, and then I'll be done with distraction. But actually, more to the point, the reason for calm and tranquility is to study the tendencies to be distracted, to study the uneasy impulses in our heart that are just sort of waiting for something to trigger some mental activity, to regurgitate the past, to react in certain patterns that the mind has a tendency to react in. This is the legacy of the past. Our hearts, the conditioned nature of our heart and mind, is unsettled. It is this bubbling potentiality for worry and fear and hope and drama. And this is just the case. So we need to understand what that is. So the cultivation of some calm, some stability, using the breath, using hearing, using the whole body, returning to the anchor, connecting, sustaining, as a preliminary way to settle down, to make a choice. Like, I could think that thought, but I'm going to come back to the breath, or I'm going to come back to feeling the body sitting. I'm going to come back to seeing or to hearing. I'm going to come back to washing the dishes or walking or sitting on the couch or whatever it might be, petting the pet. Just coming back to something here and now, some anchor that is a useful or skillful means to realize this is here and now. This petting of the cat is here and now. This hearing of sound is here and now. And to feel the beginnings of that unification, like collecting the mind, collecting, gathering, settling in that present moment experience. And then when those bubbly, unresolved tendencies in our heart get triggered, to think, to plan, to remember, to fantasize, to compare, to problem solve, all the different ways we worry and speculate, proliferate. When that happens, then it's going to happen in the context of the mind being relatively settled and clear. And it will see that bubbling up of the drama more clearly for what it is. Oh, it's a natural phenomena. It's just thinking and maybe some emotion being known, being felt. It's not really personal, because one of the things that gets clear when we observe is I didn't do that. We see the mind very calm and settled, and all of a sudden doubt takes root or sprouts. But we realize in that observation that I didn't do that. It arose lawfully through causes and conditions, but in a very natural and personal way. The right causes, right stimuli were there. And then that tendency arose. And we really start to see the impersonal nature of this drama. And it's really important because that makes it easier for the heart to let it be, to let go and let it be. Because we realize when we're not clear, we think, I've got to get attached to that thought or this line of thought because I'm thinking it's me. But the more we observe, the more we see how ephemeral and impersonal it is, not worthy of grasping, not leading to any kind of satisfaction. Like the other lie that is there with the drama is that if I think this through, it will somehow be satisfying. But you know how it is when we're spinning with something, regurgitating something, it doesn't get more satisfying the more we think about it. It gets less satisfying, more exhausting. And like I mentioned in the guided sit, I think, at some point we're so exhausted by what the mind has been obsessing on, the mind just wants to drop it, but it doesn't know how to drop it. So it has to find another drama, sort of like tag team dramas, and it sort of another drama comes into the mind, and the mind gets encapsulated or gets congealed with that drama, and therefore can let go of the thing that was exhausting and heavy and not really going anywhere. And the new drama has all these senses of possibility because it's fresh, but it's just a matter of time before it, in a way, gets worn out. And I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, it's like chewing gum, where when you first put that new stick of gum in your mouth or whatever, it's just got so much flavor and so much sugar. And then after whatever hour, not much left in that gum. And there's such a strong tendency to throw out that gum and put in a new stick of gum. And we feel so naked and alone if we just take the gum out and don't orally fixate on something else, whatever that might be, right? And that's the same thing. It's a very particular unpleasant feeling when we've been obsessing, and then we realize there's some wisdom and awareness that realizes it, and we drop it. And there's that kind of momentary feeling like, I don't want to feel what it feels like. But, we think, oh, that's just me without a drama. But it isn't me without a drama. That yucky feeling is the natural aftertaste, the natural reverberation of having been lost in thought. So if we want to clearly understand what that yucky feeling is, because the mind was attached, identified, obsessing, caught up, thinking this, therefore there is this yucky feeling. So if I don't want that yucky feeling, don't take the bait, don't get lost in the next drama. Realize that thoughts are just thoughts. And we can have a friendly relationship to those thoughts. We don't have to be averse. We don't have to be afraid. And one of the things you can reflect on this week, and those of you who are able to stay for the small group in about 7 minutes, you can talk about in the small group, is just to look at these 3 things with our habits of thinking and worrying and planning and speculating and problem solving. So whatever your particular flavor of thinking, being lost in thought, your predominant ways to do that, to really get to know the gratification. This is what the Buddha suggests. Really know what is the juice that the mind gets, because the mind doesn't just do something that's only stressful. There must be some initial sugar, like in that gum, to make us put that stick of gum in our mouth and chew, chew, chew. So what is it about the mind worrying about this, planning this, remembering this, regurgitating that, problem solving this? What is it about that? How does that provide some gratification for the heart, mind, body. Get to know the gratification, because there is a payoff, and then get to know the drawback. Okay, so what's the drawback? Well, the drawback is that yucky feeling of addiction, like the mind gets really uncomfortable without a drama. And even while it's in the juicy part of the drama, it's actually underneath the sweetness of the juiciness is the stressfulness of needing something to chew on, needing something to spin with. And that can be discerned. It's like we look right through the pleasantness of the gratification into what else is there in the moment. We're not repressing or denying that there's some juice. We're just asking, well, what else is here in the moment when I'm thinking, planning, worrying, comparing? I just want to see and feel what's here as it actually is, more honestly, more clearly, more subtly. So that's the drawback. We want to know the gratification and the drawback. And the more we get to know, honestly, those two aspects of mental proliferation or distractedness, then we can get to know the third, which is, well, what is the release or the escape? How is it that the mind can be free of distraction? What's that mind? A mind that, for moments, is not dependent on mental proliferation. There may be, in fact, thoughts, but the mind isn't feeding or dependent on those thoughts, isn't attached or taking those thoughts personally. So it's like someone left a radio on. It's just sound, the mental reverberations of thought and mental images. It's just like there's a video playing. And some of those videos playing in the background, our thinking mind, are really like wise, good documentaries, that have a lot of useful information. And some of those thoughts are completely silly and nonsensical and everything in between. But the mind, the heart, or wisdom has learned not to be dependent. But that's not the same as being averse to thought or pathologizing. It's not evil. Thoughts, the capacity to abstract and think about things in that abstract way, using concepts, ideas, mental images, obviously quite necessary and useful, and especially to belong together, right? Because we use that language of abstraction to connect with each other. So we don't need to pathologize. We just need not to be dominated by this capacity to abstract, to think, to imagine, to picture. We just need to understand what it is. It's something happening in the present moment. It looks and feels like this. We just need to prioritize present moment awareness, this non-distractedness, over the almost endless mental proliferation. Otherwise, we are literally enslaved or caught in these tendencies of mind. So sorry if the people have been having trouble with their video. I'm not sure, that maybe Nancy and Jessica, you could share with me later what you've learned so that we can keep this from happening in the future, if it is in fact something with our internet here at Common Ground. And Nancy is here today to help form small groups. So if you're able to stay, I really recommend that people stay. But I do want to make a few announcements. Shelley Graff will be leading the half-day retreat on March 12th. Cecilia Ramon and I will be leading a day-long on the first Saturday in April. I'm forgetting when that is. Maybe like the 4th of April. And it's on resilience. It will be online, and it will be in person at the retreat center, not at the city center. So keep those retreat days in mind, the half day with Shelley on the 12th, and then Cecilia Ramon and I leading day long on Saturday, I think the 4th, but the first Saturday in April. And Shelley will be leading the loving kindness practice group this coming Friday. And there's 5 practice periods at the retreat center in April. Gabe Keller Flores just sent that out to everybody on the weekly email. This is a good plug to get on that weekly email if you think you want to be part of the community. And this spring, we're having the Community Practice Intensive, April 11th through the 30th of April, not at the in June when we normally have it. So consider if that works for you. Sarah Wilson and I will be leading that.